In the wrecking crew, Thomas Franks spoke for those who feared that the progressive forces would be outgunned and outsmarted once again last November by the radical rightists. The larger vision of Roe, Tom DeLay, Phil Gramm, and their ilk, he writes, is of a future in which liberalism is physically barred from the control room, and an end of history in which taxes and onerous regulation will never again be allowed to threaten the fortunes that private individuals make for themselves. So how, against the odds of plutocracy, experience, color, class, and misconceived patriotism has it come about that change comes to Washington in 16 days? Beyond the cycles and the other paradigms, the election of America's 44th president is distinguished by three special, not to say unique factors, I think. The global, the racial, as you pointed out, Jacqueline, and the catastrophic, as John Darwin has observed. The first, the global, is that the 2008 election was the first U.S. election in history in which the whole world voted, figuratively. The planet was excited by Barack Hussein Obama for as much of what he was as for what he said. Arguably not since Woodrow Wilson promulgated his 14 points, and the ideals of an American politician mattered as much to the rest of the world. To observe this unprecedentedly expensive and long presidential campaign from Berlin, Paris, and London, as my wife and I did during an extended EU residency, was to be instructed in an exalted European idea of American exceptionalism. Think 250,000 Berliners, as you were just saying, John, in the Tiergarten, waving the stars and stripes almost in desperation for a once-admired superpower. These Berliners, as did most Europeans, saw the United States' indifference to international law and comity, military adventurism, and self-fulfilling policies of a civilizational shootout as the major source of the rising tide of religious, cultural, and security crises threatening to engulf them. Granted, popular opinions abroad were fueled by long pent-up resentments and schadenfreude. No matter that a Turkish chancellor, or a German of Germany, an Algerian president of France, or a Pakistani prime minister at Downing Street was not even an EU fantasy. Europeans, Asians, Africans, Indians, Chinese, Latin Americans, and Canadians claimed that Barack Obama's election was America's last chance to regain global respect and retain geopolitical leverage. And to a great many Americans, these concerns really mattered. Second, the racial. W.E.B. Du Bois set the terms for American race relations, whatever that term is, 100 years ago, famously prophesying that the color line would be the paramount problem of the 20th century. Writing the first academic biography of Martin Luther King some 38 years ago, I reasonably assumed that King's vision would be indefinitely trumped by Du Bois's axiom. To watch from Berlin the television fulminations of Reverend Jeremiah Wright made one expect the Obama candidacy to be fatally wounded by the hate that, until then, had dared not speak its name. Since LBJ's presidency, the race wedge with its Bradley factors, welfare queens, and Willie Horton scarecrows has been the Democratic Party's special curse. Then Senator Obama's astonishing speech at Philadelphia's National Constitutional Center succeeded for the first time in American public debate in triangulating race, class, alterity, and opportunity in proclaiming that his life story was, quote, seared into my genetic makeup. His life story had, quote, unquote, seared into my genetic makeup the idea that this nation is more than the sum of its parts. The candidate turned the race wedge on itself by transforming the third rail of national politics into a causeway to American exceptionalism at its finest. In so doing, Barack Obama, the first existential president, seemed to resolve those insurmountable dilemmas of nationality and color unforgettably posed by Du Bois's foundational text, The Souls of Black Folk. Finally, this election was probably most decisively decided by catastrophe, notwithstanding the delightful gift of Sarah Palin. Although the math in the House and Senate is gratifying to the President-elect's ambitious change agenda, please note that 59 million Americans trudged through the carnage of Greenspanomics to pull the McCain-Palin lever. Absent the breathtakingly sudden collapse of unregulated capitalism and the GOP candidates' eerie economic unsophistication manifested in the final campaign weeks, neither Obama's position on the Iraq War nor his insurance prescriptions for health care might have given him a clear electoral college victory. 55% of whites still voted for McCain. Many more of them, plus others, would almost certainly have done so. The catastrophic failure of the market caused the electorate to experience a crisis of profligacy that played to Obama's unflappable temperament and Keynesian nostrums. In the audacity of hope, the President-elect offered his readers the wisdom of Hamilton and Lincoln. Their basic insight, he wrote, quote, is that the resources and power of the national government can facilitate rather than supplant a vibrant free market has continued to be one of the cornerstones of both Republican and Democratic politics at every stage of American development. Enough of us have decided that the insights of a Hamilton and the confidence of an FDR made a replay of the New Deal imperative. I hope I haven't gone on too long. Thank you.